Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello, and welcome back to Homeschool Together. Thank you for joining us. I hope your new year is glowing bright like a drone over New Jersey skies. If you'd like to support the podcast, Ariel.
Terrible.
Oh, that was a good one. Ariel did not know that was coming.
I never know they're coming.
You never know when they're coming. No, they never know. It's always nights. Yeah. Anyway, if you think about support the podcast, we got a bunch of things you can do down below. Leave us a review. Support us on our Gumroad page, but most importantly, try to help another family who might be starting this journey.
Absolutely.
I know at our parent partnership, it's so funny. Every week we see a whole new crop of people coming through, and we keep growing. Like this year, we added like a couple hundred people. I think next year they're going to add another couple hundred. There's a lot of new people coming into the homeschool community, and if you know a few and they're looking for a little bit of support and help, point them to our massive, overwhelmingly staggering catalog of content now.
Yeah, we have a lot of episodes. And I know one of the things that I've had several people write into me and ask how to search our episodes, for episodes. This is on our wish list of things to do for our website, because I know that when you go to our website, which is homeschool-together.com, we have just a link to the podcast. It goes to our Fireside page, and Fireside's who hosts our podcast. And there is no search function there. I don't know why that is, but there's not. So if you're looking for a specific episode, even if you don't intend to listen on YouTube, YouTube is a great way to find, just the right episode. If you want to tell a friend, they did this great episode about, XYZ, I would say go to YouTube, and then you can queue up that episode number in your podcast app. But right now, that's the best way to search our catalog. And there are over 400 episodes, and I know we need to add a search. So I hear you all. And it's one of the things that we do want to get to, but there's an ever-mounting list of things. And today we're going to be talking about motivation. This is one of those things. And I think we should share with you all, as we're kind of going through this, that Matthew has started his master's degree for his teaching certificate.
Get out of here.
Yeah, so
that's right. That's it. Everybody runs to the hills. He's going to be teaching the youth of America.
Right? It's a scary thought. But yeah, you're starting your master's and doing a very accelerated program because you would like to teach at our parent partnership. And that's the goal.
I would like to get my mornings back and not be studying about, literacy methods.
So yeah, we've been doing intense. So we do have some goals of some things we want to put out for the podcast. We do want to add more to our website. We want to add more to our curriculum resources page. There's a lot we need to do, but right now our focus is on, now that we're both in graduate school, isn't that fun? Is on getting him through this next couple of months.
I got about 80 more days. 80 more days of hard work, and then my butt's in a classroom to do all the teaching stuff. So just, if we're going to keep these podcasts coming out regularly, but just kind of like bear with us a little bit as we're trying to juggle this other part of life right now. And no, I'm not going to leave and go to public school and teach there. No, I'm trying to get a job. I'm trying to get a gig. I'm doing gig work at our parent partnership, and I need a teaching certificate to do that.
Right. Yeah. No, it's not And I think it's interesting. The more that you have done in your master's, the more that you're learning about the reasons why you actually don't want to be in a traditional classroom and why you don't want your kids to be in a traditional classroom. And there's a whole thing about that. So later this year, we're going to get through a whole series of episodes because you're learning some amazing stuff for being a teacher that is totally applicable to what we do as homeschool parents. So we're going to be like pulling in some really great episodes from your masters to kind of, because it's funny, that's always the question that we ask, especially former teachers that became homeschool parents on our interviews. We're like, hey, you were a teacher. what knowledge can you impart upon us as homeschool parents? What can we do differently? What should we be on the lookout for? All that stuff, different techniques and stuff. And now you're getting like the secret sauce.
Well, I mean, at the educational level, you have the structural problem, because it's like, okay, we have 1 or 2 kids in our house and they've got 25 to 35.
Right. And if it's middle school, then they have a new 30 or whatever it is every hour. So that's fun.
Yeah, you have that structural problem. But I'll tell you what, from ways of teaching and the ways they try to approach learning and the way they try to approach the child, I could tell you what, at least from an educational standpoint, what they're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to do on an individual level, very similar to what we try to do with our homeschool. Yeah. Very personalized, very tailored, trying to meet the student where they are. A lot of the same language you hear in the homeschool community when people talk about, why they want to homeschool. They're trying to do this, but they're trying to do this on scale. And I think that's where a lot of the struggle on their end, where they're struggling at it. But from our standpoint, I think it's easier to implement a lot of this stuff because we have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 kids, and it's a little bit more manageable from a classroom management standpoint.
And we also understand them so much better and so much closer to it. So we don't want to spoiler alert too much on that, but just, we are going to get into that later in the year. So when it comes to all things products and website and all that, we're going to give it our best shot to keep everything, keep all the plates spinning, not let anything drop.
I need my AI agents running all the time.
Wouldn't that be great?
Ariel, what was the inspiration behind this podcast, and who can you give a shout out to?
Yeah, I had a lovely mom from Dubai who was messaging me. Hi. And we were talking about a number of topics, but one of the things that she asked was if we would do a show about motivation for parents. One of the struggles that she was having, and I was like, I don't know anything about this, is, if you don't get in there in the morning and you get started right away, if you don't follow the plan that you had for the day, it's really hard to pick it up later. And I totally feel this, and I think it's interesting because when we talk about motivation for homeschool, if you do searches online and things for that, which we do a lot of research for these shows, it's all about kids. It's all about how do you motivate your kids? How do you get your kids to want to sit down and learn? I'm like, she had a good point. How do we motivate ourselves to get in there and teach? Because it's not just taking the time for homeschool. I think a lot of us are happy to do that. It's that there's a lot of fun aspects of homeschool. There's the art, and there's the field trips, and the cool science, and let's watch that documentary, and let's cook together, and all the fun things, and motivating ourselves to get back to the things that we struggle to teach or that are a little difficult to teach with our student. How do we find that motivation? So we wanted to focus this episode on that to hopefully try to answer her question and, give everybody some ideas. One of the big pieces for us as homeschooling parents is we are juggling a lot of responsibilities. So we're a parent, we're an educator, we might also be an employee.
We'll be going to school, maybe coaching sports. There's a lot to juggle there. And
we have a lot, we are a spouse as well. So we've got that, that we're kind of dealing with. We may be a caretaker for a parent or other, right? So there could be a lot of responsibilities that we have. And then we've also chosen homeschool. We've chosen this harder path to not send our kids off to school, but to keep them with us and to take on that role as primary educator. So there's a lot that we've got to, the metaphor of keeping the plate spinning. There's a lot of plates we have to keep spinning in the air. I mean,
just this morning I was, finishing a paper to try to finish a class, and I had some homeschool stuff to do, and it was running a little late, and we had our dance class at 10 o'clock, and we are now going to sewing club.
Right.
I found out
because
today.
We had extra time.
Because so we have extra time and all that stuff. And then there was a play date at 1, and I'm sitting here furiously typing about my lesson plan that I filmed in front of my TV last night, and I'm like, Ariel, just can you have the young one read to you?
Right. And I'm like, I had to proof a report for work.
Yeah.
So I was doing that really early this morning. And so I had to do that. So she read to me, and then I was like, hey, why don't you do this art assignment next to me at the table while I'm on my laptop because I've got to read this report. Yeah. And then
then you had to come over here, and then all of a sudden we're like, well, why don't you guys go build? We're doing Stonehenge because we're in England right now studying. And
yes, I 3D printed Stonehenge. You guys, is awesome.
It was awesome. And we're like, okay, go assemble it. Here's the pictures. And it was like every 5 seconds, the little one was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I'm doing. And the big one's crying. She's taking all the stones.
Right. And we're like, we have things we have to do right now. And so, yeah, we totally understand trying to juggle things. And also those mornings where, the plan, we have a schedule. It's like,
Taped
to the window. Yes. The schedule this morning is that they're supposed to do homeschool.
We've gone serious analog with these schedules these days.
We have. We're actually taping them on the window because it's what's working for us. And it's really helped the kids because they now know what's going on. So it's actually great.
The big one can read.
The big one can read and translate it for the little one. It's great. But, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to homeschool for a couple hours this morning. None of that really happened. I mean, like a little bit, but it didn't really happen the way that we had planned. And then later, when you all got home from sewing club, then it was time to like, hey, we actually have to do some homeschool for today because there's a play date going on. And there's other things happening later. But that wasn't the time we had slotted for that. We had that time slotted and it said on the calendar, or the schedule, that was the time the girls had to play. And so they were like, what the heck? This is our playtime.
Exactly.
We don't get a lot of playtime on,
Yeah, the schedules
as if they never get any playtime.
They can break down so fast. And
it's just like...
And so many times, like, you'll say, oh, you have Mondays free. You'll be able to do this. And it's like, you look at the calendar, and it's like, oh, no, every dentist appointment has been put there, every doctor's appointment, all these schedules and everything. All of a sudden, you start realizing, I don't really have those many free times. And you're right. Like, the first thing that you can feel where you kind of get out of this groove and you lose this motivation is through this kind of disrupted schedules. These things always come up. Yesterday, what was it? I was coming back from the dentist. I had to drop off books that were so overdue that we were not allowed to check out new books from the library.
It was a bad situation.
So I had to go home, get those books, run over to there, to put them in the library, to give them 2 hours to check them in. Then I went to the dentist for the orthodontist appointment with the one older kid. And then on our way back, I'm like, okay, it's been enough time. I think we can check out books now, and we could. And then we came home, and it was like we were out all day. It was just, yesterday was supposed to be a light day.
You could have gone in and handed those books to the librarian and then checked the books out right away.
I was balancing plates.
Okay.
I was like minimal viable product of how I can move forward.
It's true, right? Our schedules are. It's funny because people who are outside this community just think that we sit at home and we have these carefree days and we're all like sequestered here. Our days are so busy. We have so much going on with the kids in sports and dance and school. And play dates and activities together as a family, and just there's a lot of things. So I think that disruption is a huge piece of it, and that leads right into the second point, which is it can be hard to be motivated when we are overwhelmed
and burned out and tired. I mean, we were watching Wallace and Gromit tonight, and I was like, I'm not going to make it 13 minutes in this movie. Yeah. We were watching. I'm like, oh, this is cute. Oh, that penguin looks scary, and then.
Feathers McGraw.
I don't even know his name.
I think that was his name.
I don't even know his name, but I was so tired, and I just cuddled up with the little one. She was enjoying it. I just fell right to sleep. I was starting to get a little burned out at the end of this week. It was a busy week, and I could totally feel it for parents who are at home, and maybe you don't have the number of things that we have where we're trying to do, like you're doing the play right now, and then we have the school. Maybe instead of those type of things, maybe you have a little bit of a different flavor. Maybe you're right, what you said, you're caring for an elderly parent, or you have 4 children, or you have a farm that you're running with all your animals. We layer in so many things, and then all the activities on top of it. That was the other thing. I came back yesterday from picking up the books, and I had like maybe 60 minutes before then we had to go to our double dance class. And it's like, holy cow, there's just so much stuff going on, and you can really feel that burnout. And I didn't get a lot of good sleep last night, so I'm gonna hop into our inflatable hot tub tonight.
We're so bougie in our inflatable hot tub.
I'm gonna watch for UFOs in the sky, and then we're gonna go to bed and hopefully get a good night's sleep.
It's true, right? So, and we have an episode that you can link below on homeschool burnout, which is really good, and kind of trying to get your groove back. So I think burnouts, it's true, right? We notice ourselves get irritable. We lose patience with our spouse and our kids. There's a lot of signs of burnout. If you think burnout might be your problem, definitely listen to that episode because there's lots of great stuff that kind of exists there. But burnout can be a great reason why we're just like, I can't get back to it. You're either burned out or, your schedule didn't go the way you want. And you just feel like, you know what, the day's a total loss. I'm done. I'm done. There's nothing more I can do. I didn't get done what I wanted to do, and I'm so exhausted. Whatever, go play.
I realized that burnout, can change, structurally from, one age range to another. I've noticed recently that I don't whine and complain to you about the schooling not going well as much as more like behavioral stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, she's just not motivated, as opposed to, I don't know what is my new tool that I need to put in to help her learn this thing or get her over these things or teach this child this thing. I feel like I'm starting to get past that, but the burnout now is like other things. It's like there's now too much going on.
There's attitude.
Yeah, there's attitude and there's emotional elements and stuff. And it's like I come down and I look at you across the table and you're eating your cereal and I'm like trying to gauge, did she get enough sleep? How is this going to go today? Like I just don't feel like the burnout's different. And I think, from maybe your standpoint, listening, that you may have some type of burnout now. I think in a year or two, you're going to have different types of burnout, and you should be prepared for that. Be prepared for those motivational problems coming from different areas.
It's funny, our homeschools evolve, right, as our kids get older and as they mature and they go through different stages in their life. But then it's also kind of cyclic, and so we have phases of homeschool, like seasons of homeschool. So it's kind of funny. It's both like cyclic and evolving.
My seasons of homeschool song?
No,
Helen was immortalized.
So that's definitely two. So those are two big causes of losing motivation, right? Our disrupted schedules, our burnout, and the other one is the stuff that comes from outside of our home, right? The pressure that we feel if we're not totally confident about our decision to homeschool, right? You've got that. I always like to give the mother-in-law joke, that's your mother-in-law doesn't understand why you want to homeschool. My mother-in-law is incredibly supportive of it, but but that's like my classic. But whoever it is in your family, or it could be your spouse too, that's just not really sure, whatever doubts you're holding about homeschool and whether or not you've made the right decision, that can really weigh on how motivated you are to get in there. And when we talk about motivation too, we're not just talking about the actual act of teaching, right? And when we talk about disrupted schedules and stuff, we're talking about that. But it's also the act of planning and prepping for it, of looking at curriculum, of getting excited about what you're going to learn with your student. It's the whole thing. It's anything to do with homeschool. And I think that if you are not feeling confident in what you're doing, especially if it's your first year and you're like, I don't really know what I'm doing, I'm muddling through the best I can, that can really affect how motivated you are to keep going. And one of the things that I would caution for those folks who feel like, that you don't feel confident in your decision, you're not sure if you're doing the right thing, we're all worried that we're going to screw up our kids for life, is that school, like a public school, it will always be there. It's always an option. So, you're giving something a try, and if that's not the right thing for your family in 2 months or 6 months or a year, 6 years, then you'll make a change. But it's not a permanent decision. It's not like you can't ever go back. I mean, everything has its own challenges, especially when you transition back and forth. But I think that's a big hit to parents' confidence, and they harbor guilt about like, am I doing the right thing? And they're not sure. I think you just have to kind of sit with it and say, hey, this whole thing's an experiment. We're just trying it, and we're going to do it as long as it's right for us, or as long as we're enjoying it.
Yeah, when those parents were walking around campus this week, when I saw them, they had that look in their eyes. I think it was probably the same look I had when I started the pre-K Torchlight curriculum 5 years ago. It was like, I have no idea what we're doing. This is a big place. This is scary.
Right.
The kids were just walking around kind of like side-eyeing everyone. They're like,
well, it's
I don't
a busy
know what
campus.
this is like. It's a very busy campus. And
there's a lot going on.
And it's also so foreign, because if you think about it, like, I could only assume that those parents are coming from a public school in some case, or something like that. Or maybe they are homeschooling themselves, and they're not part of a parent partnership, and they're walking into this place and there's parents and kids everywhere, little kids pushing chairs like sleds through the gathering room. And it's like, it was mass chaos. And I could see the pressure on their eyes. Like, what am I getting myself into? This is wild.
Right.
And we totally understand that. And that pressure is, I think, that initial pressure, those first few year learning, that like kind of learning curve type of thing, it goes by real fast. But the external pressures, as you kind of said here, from like outside, like maybe parents or family members or friends or neighbors or whatnot, who maybe like don't agree with homeschooling and are going to put that pressure on you, or you're afraid of, or you're concerned about how you're going to be perceived or how your children will be welcomed into certain communities because you're a homeschooler. Those are things they're always going to be there, and I know those could cause undue pressure for you. That again, as we keep saying, it could impact your motivation.
Right. We had a great episode called "Naysayers." So if this is happening to you, and you have someone close in your life that really isn't supportive of your decision.
That's from the Wayback catalog, Ariel.
It is, but it's oldie but a goodie. I think so.
Up next, naysayers.
The other thing when you first start homeschooling is you're going to do a whole lot of internet research, and these days that's like YouTube research, and so you're going to see a lot of people showing you their immaculate looking homeschools. Everything is in soft whites and creams and light browns, and there's always great natural light, and there's lots of Montessori toys and things. And I would really encourage you to, when you meet up with actual homeschoolers, to ask what things look like in their life, because our house is always messy. There's always a little bit of chaos. The dining room table.
Art everywhere.
There's art everywhere. There's always something sticky on the kitchen table. Like it's not.
There's only one human to blame for that. It's the little one.
It's true, and yet there's dog hair in the corners. It's not picture perfect, and I think that view can really impact your motivation, because you think like, I could not live up to this. How am I going to be that mom with or dad or whatever, that person who looks like everything is easy, like this is all just great. Here's their beautifully decorated homeschool room. We don't use a homeschool room. We use our kitchen table, and there are books everywhere, including in the kitchen. So we have art projects on the fridge. We decorated a beautiful homeschool room we never use. We use the kitchen table.
Well, that beautiful homeschool room is now a giant, what is it? It's like it's the American Doll mega city right now.
Doll Lego YouTube studio spare bedroom. I don't know.
That's great. No, that was a great way to put it.
Yeah. Point is, don't. It can be really hard to look at other folks and do that kind of comparison, like that Keeping Up with the Joneses. Was that another episode of ours? I think it was. Let's link it in the show notes. So I'm
going to be your manual search engine here.
I think so. So one of the things, that's all the stuff that can affect our motivation. But let's talk a little bit about
pulling it back.
Let's pull back a little bit and talk about why parental motivation matters so much. Obviously, if we didn't say to our kids, it's time to homeschool, they would just do Lego all day. So, or Play-Doh or whatever.
Play-Doh,
So, one of the reasons why parental motivation matters so much is it's such a ripple effect. Our energy translates directly to our kids, right? It's not just about, hey, it's time for homeschool, but it's also about like the whole energy in our household that, hey, we're up and we're motivated to do this. If we're like, I don't know if we're going to do it, or I'll get around to it. Our kids, they just feed off of that energy. They really feel that.
Yeah, I agree. The way you approach the day, you are that vanguard, that's that tip of the spear. And you're right. If you're coming into it with, distracted, you're on your phone, you're not really paying attention, you're upset, you're short-tempered, it's okay. You're always going to have those bad days, but what's great about it is that you can come and you can fix the situation, come back in an hour or two, maybe go for a short walk, get outside, come back, resettle back in. You're right. The ripple effect on your emotion, and it's not fair, right?
No, it's not.
Because if they're having a bad day, you have to try to pull them out of it. If you're having a bad day, it impacts the quality of everything going on. It's not fair that you have to you got to carry the weight, and you got to carry the boats, as David Goggins said.
So, and
who's carrying the boat, and it's going to be you.
If you're negative or not into it, then they're going to get frustrated. They're going to not be into it. On the flip side, though, if you're motivated, it's much more likely that your student's going to be ready to engage with the learning. Yeah. I'm not saying that's always the case. You have come down before, but like, let's get started with math. And our daughter's like, ugh. So we're not saying like 100% guarantee here, especially not for 9-year-olds, but it definitely can have, there's a ripple effect from you for positively or negatively in your motivation.
And I think once you kind of realize that your how you approach the day affects that, you want to start thinking about building resilience and how what type of strategies can you use to approach the day. I think that comes with a little bit of experience when you start to think about when you come into that room, if you're having a bad day or if your students are having a bad day, how can you pivot your curriculum? How can you tailor things, move things in and out, shorten things, chunk stuff up, all these different types of methods. And we've talked about them for years on the podcast about, just ways to approach learning when things aren't going great.
Right. And it may not be negative. It may just be that your whole morning got screwed up because you had a doctor's appointment and then this happened and then that happened and the day was beautiful. And so you went on a walk and now you're sitting here and it's 2:00 in the afternoon and you've done nothing.
Or the thing that I both love and I both get frustrated at, just not in a bad way, but one of the things I hate doing is interrupting deep play. When I see these girls playing and they're giggling and they're laughing and they're having a great time and they're living in their imagination and they're building worlds and they're talking and communicating. They're
not fighting or hitting.
We're not fighting or hitting.
Or pinching or scratching.
Or they're creating something, right? And they're exploring the world and they're setting rules and boundaries and imagining things and talking about, characters that they're pretending to be and acting and all that type of stuff. And it's like, I cannot create that level of learning by sitting there and doing some direct instruction. This is like perfection, right? At this age range, that K to 4, K to 5 range, it would hurt me to my soul to have to interrupt that type of thing. Right. And that's like, okay, well, I can let them go for another 30 minutes. I can let them go for another 40 minutes and see if there's a natural breaking point where I can start to get into the things I want. For me, that's always the hardest thing in thinking about resilience, like, whatever the situation is going on, being able to inject yourself in and maybe pull them into what you need to accomplish for the day and things like that. Right. Doing homeschool on the road, I'm constantly filling my backpack full of workbooks and stuff because I know I'm like, oh my gosh, am I literally going to have to do a math lesson at Costco today?
Right. Yes. Are we going to have to take a workbook to the dentist for the one that's not?
We're doing that today. Yeah.
We are. And we see other homeschoolers out there doing that. And I think that's really great because there's so many valuable parts of the day, right? Like going for a walk, that's valuable, having time together, even going to a doctor's appointment. There's so much that they're learning. But at the same time, we do have to do like math and reading and the things so there is that balance. And I think that it's great when we can show our kids that, maybe the day didn't go according to plan, but we're going to persevere. We know this still has to be done. Maybe that means we're homeschooling after dinner tonight, but that's okay. We're going to approach it with a good attitude and say, we just can't not accomplish our goals. I mean, there's plenty of days. Today's a great example where we didn't do any homeschool. But we can't have that happen every day. And it feels like our schedule gets, turned upside down every day. So and eventually you got to catch up.
And I'll always be brutally honest. I do homeschooling for about maybe 3.5 days a week. And I'm able to get it all done in that time. We have obviously our classes we take at our parent partnership that help accentuate a lot of learning. And I consider, our Wednesdays are very full days. So I consider that learning.
But our core, we're doing like 3.5 days of core.
3.5 days of core. And that gets us at a better than, once a year, essentially one level per year type of clip.
Right.
And for me, and that's fine because we do all year round homeschooling. We don't stop.
But I think modeling resilience for our kids is super important because it's something that they're going to need, especially as they get older and they're going to be busy and then they're going to go, college or whatever they're going to do afterwards. Yeah. Resilience is something that they're going to need to keep being able to come back to, like, okay, this didn't go the way that I expected, but I'm going to persevere.
Yeah. And I've noticed that the specific word resilience through communication, like communicating to your children what you need to do, what we're trying to accomplish today, why this is important, and what we can do if we can finish this, right? And again, it's just teaching your children to do that. I've been doing a lot more of that with my youngest, and she is constantly surprising me, 5.5 years old, getting on her sister, we need to do our homeschool and get it done so we can go do this thing. It's like, I'm like, thank you, 5.5-year-old. Are you listening to this 9.5-year-old? The words of wisdom right here. and building that resilience, I think, is a great thing. And I think, as we always say, it always comes through communication and just like working through the problems and challenges.
So being motivated is important, right? Getting back to the goals that we've set and, coming back around to it. So what do you do when things are not going right, right, for you, and for whatever reason it is? Yeah. So some ideas we have for reclaiming your motivation. The first is just hitting reset. Like you had a rough start for whatever reason. In our house, it could be that the 9-year-old slept poorly, and she's what we call grumpalophagus.
She is a grumpalophagus.
She's grumpy with everyone, and she doesn't want to do anything. She doesn't want to get dressed, and she hates her hair, and it's a never-ending list, right? And it's a rough start for, whatever. Think about those things that will allow you to reset, whether that's like a really great read aloud. Maybe it's just like sometimes for me, especially when I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed, I grab a book and I gather the children and I get a blanket and I'm like, let's snuggle. I'm just going to read. And it calms me and focuses me in a way that helps me to decrease my anxiety. And it also helps me to say like, okay, let's just take a deep breath. Things weren't going right, but we're going to sit down calmly. And that touching connection, because we're having a cuddle, people need people. And I think that energy, especially, I don't know what it is, from the time they were babies, right? Moms and babies and their connection. It's just something about it, right? I hold my girls and I feel better and they feel better and we all feel more connected. And so like something like that's a great idea to restart. But it could be, you could reset by saying like, and let's say it's just you're having a bad morning and everything that you're trying to do with your homeschool is not going the way you'd planned and there's fighting and there's whatever. Maybe you take a break and take a walk. Maybe you do an art project. That's something fun. Maybe you say, you know what? We're going to bake chocolate chip cookies right now. Whatever you need to do to just reset. And so, think about things that are anchor points through your day, whether it's your meal or the nap time for your youngest, if you're still lucky enough to have that, or breaks. Think about when you have these natural opportunities to rest and reset. So maybe it's not even something you do with your children. Maybe it's just something for you that you're like, okay, I'm just going to tough it through until we get to morning snack time. And then I'm going to take 10 minutes to myself and I'm going to sit quietly and I'm going to reset. And then I'm going to come back into it, right? Just knowing that there's those points in the day. Because I think sometimes we can feel like it's a slog, like, well, we're with them all day. When is there ever a break? When is there ever a time, right? But there are some anchor points through your day. So if you can think about those, maybe even as points of your day when you might reevaluate like how things are going for the day. And am I going to have to change my plans? This is where, as homeschoolers, we're always super flexible. We have to be because, I don't know, if we weren't flexible, we would die. We have to be flexible. This is a great opportunity to flex, is to take those anchor points, sit there and go, okay, let me reset. Let me flex what my afternoon was going to look like. I thought we were going to do this, but boy, that's not going that way. Okay, I'm going to get motivated to do something different.
Yeah, I mean, finding those reset points in the short term are great. That's your tool belt. That's your Batman tool belt that you're going to need when you're doing the homeschooling. A lot of times that helps in the moment. Sometimes we need to think more, the 30,000 foot view and think about your why. Yeah. Sometimes when you're having that frustrating moment, you need to like,
why did we have these children? Why? Why do we think 2 was the right number? Why?
And you think about, questioning and then answering, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because it's going to provide them a great life and a good learning experience.
We have a great episode on homeschool purpose. Matt will link it below.
I will put that down there as well. Questioning your why, maybe having to go do a little bit of, quiet room thinking. Sometimes that quiet room thinking happens to be in a certain, bathroom, whatever that might be. Just kind of recenter, rethink, replan, like as you kind of said there, but really think about like, why am I doing this? Okay, great. Let's let that motivation boil up and be the thing that helps drive you forward whenever you're in a little kind of a stuck situation. So you can think large and overarching. You can think in the moment, oh, I have to pivot here because, this thing was a disaster and we had to go do this thing. You can think from both ends, almost like a barbell, two sides of approaching this type of situation.
Right. And if you're struggling through a curriculum that's just you guys are butting heads or whatever it is, rarely does your why say, why? Because I wanted them to be a math whiz or whatever. Like that's rarely the why, right? The why is usually
that's our projection onto them. Yeah. So many times we project onto the kids. Yeah.
We do. Like, oh, hey, we said we were going to get through this whole math curriculum in X amount of months, and that's my thing. Well, our why is really about connection with our kids, and it's about a full and rich life for them, and all the experiences we can give them and all these other things. And it helps us to just take a minute and think about like, okay, why am I here? If my son or daughter is having an amazing time with what they're doing, and like you said, they're doing deep imaginative play, and that means that math isn't happening today, maybe that goes with my why, that's okay.
Yeah.
And I'll be motivated to say, hey, you know what? You can even say to the child, hey, I brought you a snack, and we're gonna do math after dinner. Is that okay? Okay, cool. You keep building that fort. Go for it, buddy. Get their buy-in, make a new plan, still be motivated if you need to accomplish these things. And I'm not saying to like toss your goals completely, sure, but remembering why we're here.
Yeah. And also remember the following, this hit me yesterday. I volunteer at the school. I'm in a couple classrooms and whatnot. You may have a day where you, like what you just said, this happened to me on Thursday. It happened in both ways. In actually both examples. This is a great example, actually. I wanted to do math. We wanted to do a review for the end of the unit, assessment for Right Start Math. And we started it, and we had done a ton of work beforehand. And I was stupid, as a stupid homeschool parent as I am, went right into the math thing. Like, let's go ahead. We're doing this. This is great. Fourth, fifth problem in, and it is not going well. And I'm like, whoa, she has just done 60 straight minutes of homeschool, did a really good job having to write sentences. That's really difficult for her. And she was really thinking hard, and we were working together. And now I'm asking her to do like 20 math problems. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, you're a crazy guy, right? And it just totally fell apart. And I said, okay, fine. We'll do this math later. And man, throughout the whole day, something else came up. There was that whole rigmarole thing where I had to go to the library, go back to the orthodontist, and all this stuff. And eventually at the end of the day, I took the purple book because we're on level E, and I just slid it back into the shelf and just said it wasn't happening today.
Yeah.
And I didn't kick myself over it. I didn't beat myself up and said I failed today, because the corollary to that is if your kid is in school, you may have a sick teacher, and they're not going to get a math lesson in that day.
Yeah.
And that happened in my volunteer class. The teacher was sick, and the class got canceled at the same time. And that was one of the reasons why I got to do more homeschooling with her in the morning. Even in the public schools, even in the private schools, they're going to have moments and days where they don't get to do the thing they get to do, right? And so don't kick yourself, if you have a lost moment, or you have that, like, you feel like you're failing because you didn't get to the thing you're going to do.
Because that totally affects your motivation.
It does, right? It absolutely does.
You're like, oh, I didn't accomplish anything. I didn't get this done. It's like being on a new, health journey or something. It's like, okay, I'm going to eat really well. I'm going to do all this stuff. And then you have one day where it all goes, crazy. And then you're like, that's it. I clearly can't do this. I can't eat right. I can't exercise. I'm, blah, blah. You just give up. Right. Yeah. And it leaches out your motivation to come back the next day. So really knowing what your why is and accepting that, okay, it's not always going to be perfect, but I'm here, I'm doing my best. My kid's finding joy in these pieces. We'll get back to it the next day.
Well, and it piggybacks right onto that is the idea of simplifying your approach. I got a lot of homeschooling done that day. Why am I going to beat myself up if we're going to miss a math lesson? We're moving fast in math. Why am I going to beat myself up for that? When we were sitting there doing some homeschool, maybe you're sitting there saying, man, the rest of the day is going to be busy. I only really have the next 60 minutes. I have 4 workbooks. Which 2 of those workbooks are the most important? Or should I do 2 pages of everything, or maybe just 1 page of everything, or maybe just 1 page of 3 of them? Like, think about simplifying your day. It's not the end of the world if they miss one little thing, or if you don't accomplish the entire lesson, but you got a little bit of a lesson. The learning still happens.
It's the consistency,
really. It's like working out, right? The one thing, like what you said with the weightlifting, the weight loss. If you're like working out, trying to get stronger, bigger, it's all about doing progressive overload continuously over a long period of time. And just every day you're going to approach your homeschool. It's like a heartbeat, boom, 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 boom. You're going to do it every day, every other day. You're going to miss a little bit here, but you're going to keep coming back to it. You're going to keep coming back to it. You're not going to stop.
That consistency and resilience means way more than accomplishing and checking every box
in the moment. Yeah.
That you had on your...
And it's weird because it's hard. It's like kind of that analogy of the forest through the trees. Like in the moment you're sitting here and you're like, I'm not going to be able to do this math lesson today. I feel like a failure. But if you don't look back and you kind of like zoom out and say, well, over the last 30 quote unquote school days that we did math lessons on 20 of those and we did great, right? And we're not failing. We're moving at a great clip. Right. So thinking about if you're lacking a little motivation, maybe you pare things down so you don't cause the burnout, you don't cause the anxiety, you don't cause the frustration. Think about maybe scoping down what you're doing for the day to help keep the motivation up, both in you and in your student.
Right. Focusing on what's most important. And the other thing is you can't do this by yourself. Yeah. You need to have a support system, whether that's a good friend who's also a homeschooler or your spouse that you're going to, sit up, late at night and talk with, here's how homeschooling's going. Somebody that really supports you, whether they're a homeschooler or not. But it's great if they are a homeschooler or, your spouse. I mean, definitely you and I are such a support system for each other. And we talk about this all the time about how our homeschool's going. And when we're feeling moments of like, I can't tell you the number of times that you've come to me and said, I think I'm failing at this. I don't think I'm teaching this right. She's still struggling with these reading concepts, or I've taught this math concept so many times and I've tried it in different ways. And I don't know what to do. And you're feeling really dejected. And I'm there to kind of like bounce ideas off with and, to kind of prop you up too. So having that support system is really important. I don't think we can do it in a vacuum. It doesn't have to necessarily
be a spouse. It could be a friend. It could be another homeschooling parent where you're as a sounding board. Don't think it just has to be your spouse. I mean, you may have a spouse that does a night shift and you just don't have that emotional support there. But if you have another mom, I constantly go to the parent partnerships and I see moms sitting together, laughing and talking about curriculum and talking about, issues. So find a core people, find your spouse, whoever can be your support network can really help with the motivation because it does take that pressure off of you and you can share a little bit of it with them and it can like free up the motivation. It almost feels like, shackles on you. And if you can unbelt a few of them, you can feel, okay, I can do this again. I can move forward.
Yeah. Support is, and if you don't have anyone in your local area, or, a friend or anything that you can talk with, even an online support system is okay, right? Absolutely. So if you find a really kind Facebook group, we have a really nice Facebook group, but if you find one even in your area or even a play group to go to with your kiddos, wherever it is that you can say like, "Ooh, it was a week," and so, and for other people to go, it was a week, But hey, we laugh about it and we figure out how we're going to get back up again, and we're going to go at it next week. So I think that's really important.
Well, and that's kind of a peer emotional care, but sometimes you just need to have your own emotional care. You care for yourself as a parent,
like with all the other responsibilities we have of being a parent and a spouse and a homeschool educator and maybe an employee and all the other things that we could be. We also have to take care of ourselves. You're right. So like I made a goal this year because I want to get more sleep. Yeah. I'm not getting enough sleep and it's affecting all kinds of areas of my life because I'm just staying up too late and I'm not getting up early enough. Both sides. I need to get up earlier so that I can feel accomplished at the beginning of my day, and I need to go to bed earlier so that I get enough sleep so that I feel rested and ready to take on the day. Whatever your self-care piece is, it's really soothing to be able to say like, okay, if you don't meet your own needs, you really can't take care of others. I feel like this is great. It's the airline oxygen mask analogy. Put your oxygen mask on first and then help your child to put their oxygen mask on, right? Because if you put theirs on first, you may pass out in the process, right? Exactly. And that's the same thing. You need to care for yourself first. So if you feel that your needs aren't being met, whether it's sleep or diet or exercise or time outside or time with friends or pursuing a hobby or passion that you have, whatever it is for you, if that's affecting, your ability to show up for your homeschool in the way that you really want to, then you need to have some self-care time. And, it could be a night a week where you have the whole evening to yourself, where you get to go out to eat yourself or have time to read a book. I know a mom that we know, she's an avid reader and she's like, that's her whole self-care. She homeschools, she's with her kids all day, but she burns through like a like a book a week kind of thing, because that's her time that she can just reset.
Yeah.
And so
I always thought eating alone was sad until I became a homeschool parent.
Oh, eating alone is the best.
I could eat slowly. No, that's the key. Eating slowly alone. I think that's the one thing we never get.
Yeah, it's all about recharging yourself, whatever that means for you. I'm super social, so I kind of need to like go have lunch with a friend or something. Like I need to get out and get that kind of energy out. But for you, you're a bit more introverted. You really like, you're quiet. You're like, I need to go work out. I'm going to go work out by myself in the garage and listen to podcasts for an hour. Do not bug me.
I'm going to go on my walk on Sunday and go super long, 3 hours alone so I can listen to an audiobook and be left alone. Yeah.
So this is our message about you cannot feel guilty for taking time out for yourself, because really what you're doing is putting energy, you're making an investment in your homeschool by taking care of yourself. So when you feel like, oh, I should be doing, XYZ thing. I should be cleaning the house instead of reading a book or taking a bath or whatever that thing is that's recharging your energy. You are actually making an investment in your homeschool. Yes. So we're giving you permission. Go take a bath, light a candle, relax.
And I think the last kind of point here that we'll bring up is like, motivation through tough seasons.
Yeah.
The life transitions. A lot of times we are homeschooling through difficult times and challenges, and those can
moving or
job change with the spouse.
Illness.
Yeah, an illness as well. Yeah. Somebody's being deployed. We know a lot of military families and stuff. We have some families who are first responders who have odd shifted schedules, and it's always a challenge for them. And so, working through those type of structural life problems that kind of come up can create a huge motivation, especially if you're trying to keep some semblance of normalcy in your homeschool and trying to move things forward. Being disrupted by moving or being disrupted by, some type of, illness or whatever that might be, can cause a huge amount of frustration. And I think using a lot of the tools that we've talked about above, can help you through these types of things.
Yeah. And in that season too, if you can pare down, really think about like
the baby is coming.
Right. Or there is an illness or whatever is happening, recognizing that it would be probably impossible for you to do the same volume or maybe even the same quality that you've come to be used to in your homeschool. Really take a hard look at like, how am I going to pare down? What are the absolute essential things that I need to do or need to keep focused on? Because then if you think that you're going to go through whatever this adaptation is, this season of your life, and just keep on trucking on, invariably that won't happen. Maybe some days you'll hit it, but others you won't, and then you'll end up feeling like a failure. So if you can pare down and say, this is only a short season. I mean, right now you're going through this very intensive master's where you're finishing a class every few days. And we are definitely paring down our expectations that we know that we're going to be doing less right now. And that's okay, because it's a short season and then we're going to pick back up. So really adjust your expectations for that and try to find joy in the little moments, whether you're having a season like that or just every day in your homeschool.
Or if something is coming up that you can foresee, how can you prepare for that? Like, not that this is happening with, we have a family member who's about to have a surgery. They're going to be down for a number of weeks and in recovery and whatnot. And they've been spending the last 4 weeks preparing, making sure the house is ready, making sure that they have foods in the fridge and everything, and making sure everything's in place so that transition, that period can be adapted. I think the great example of that is a new child is coming, right? You're a homeschool mom, and bless your heart, you are 9 months pregnant.
We have a friend who is, and she's expecting very soon.
And so it's like, what is life going to be like in that 3-month window
or more
when the baby comes, and how do you do homeschool and all that type of stuff? And then once the baby is like 4 or 5 months, how are you doing homeschool with 2 other children, right? And like thinking through that.
Or in their case, 4 children.
Or 4 children, yeah. Thinking through, I know. Thinking through that and saying, okay, how am I going to approach this? Obviously baby wearing is going to be a big thing for me over the next 6 months. But approaching those types of things and maybe like pivoting homeschool, maybe pulling back a little bit for a few months. on every child, or maybe asking more of your children, allowing them to become more able-bodied learners. Whatever the method and the approach you want to take, how are you going to prepare for that moment when you're going to run in through this tough season?
Right. And just a reminder that kids in a public or private school would have a 3-month break in the summer where they would be doing nothing.
Yep.
So, if you're going to go through a season like this, maybe it's okay to take a break. Maybe you take a break and you focus on connection.
Yeah, nobody bats an eye when they're out of school for 2.5, 3 months in the summer. Well, we're homeschoolers and we're going to be out from February to April because I got a new kid coming.
Right. Whatever it is, right? Focus on reading.
And even if you can just do a little bit of stuff or whatnot, like it's not the end of the world.
On time together and time to grow as a family. Mm-hmm. Those things are so important. So, and just try to find joy.
Yeah.
That's the kind of the last message is just if you're struggling with motivation, just look for those little nuggets. Maybe it's the aha moment when your child learns something new,
the deep play,
or the time they're not hitting their sibling, or the moments where their curiosity is sparked and they're interested in something. They want to know more. The moment they get into a good book that they really like, and you're so excited to see that in them. Whatever that is, just look for those moments because those for me are little like tiny boosts. Mm-hmm. They're like, yeah, we're doing something right? Mm-hmm. They're learning. Oh, they're interested. The other day our youngest was like, "Hey, mommy, can you print a catapult?" And I'm like, "Oh," she's like, "I'm interested." I'm like, "Okay, like fine, right?" I it's like those are all just like little buoys to keep us floating and riding high and motivated to keep going in our homeschool. So whatever you do, look for those moments of joy, and hopefully these tips will help you if you're struggling with your motivation a bit, and definitely check out the other episodes that are linked in here because we expand on all those topics, and I think they're all good episodes.
And special thanks to the mom that helped motivate this episode.
We appreciate you.
We just did a Middle East study for our around the world journey. We got her. You shared the message, and we decided for our part of our journey. And I think the episode's coming out in a few weeks. Is to spend a little bit of time studying Dubai, and so we spent the whole time looking up videos of
really cool
of Dubai and everything. And all I have to tell her is you should go out for a nice walk on that sandy beach. That looks beautiful.
Yeah, maybe in the evening it looks a little warm.
Yeah, in the mornings and the evenings. I think the in the middle of the day may not be a good time.
But it looked lovely, and so yes, thank you for writing in.
Yeah.
And
if you too want to inspire a podcast, go ahead and email Ariel at homeschooltogether@gmail.com.
homeschooltogetherpodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, email me if there's something you want to hear about, or you want us to do an episode on. We're really happy to take suggestions. So take care, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!